Hi everyone, Rachael here. Welcome to another episode of the Ditch the Diet podcast. So thank you very much for tuning in for another episode of the podcast. My name is Rachael Watson and I am your host of this podcast. So the Ditch the Diet podcast is for people all over the world who want to learn how to quit yo-yo dieting and start to live a healthier lifestyle without restriction. I want to help you say goodbye to food guilt and start improving your relationship with food. And in order to do that, this podcast is sponsored by the Ditch the Diet Academy. The Ditch the Diet Academy is a membership site that is your alternative to a lifetime of slimming clubs, where we will teach you the exact steps to take to quit yo-yo dieting forever, improve your relationship with food, and get your body confidence back. You can check this out at www.ditchthedietacademy.com. If you're a long-term listener, I appreciate you so much. Please could you hit the 5-star review button and leave me a lovely review on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening to this episode. That will help me to reach more people and I would really, really appreciate it so much. And if you're brand new to the show, welcome. I'm so glad that you found us. I'm sure you're going to absolutely love this podcast. Hopefully it will become one of your weekly favourite podcasts. Please don't forget to subscribe. It would mean a lot to me and it would help me to get this podcast out to more people. Thank you so much. In today's episode, I am talking to one of my favourite authors, Michael Heppell. Michael Heppell is the author of many, many personal development books, two of my favourites being How to Be Brilliant and Flip It. And in today's episode, we're talking about how to live a brilliant life, how to get exactly what you want, how to be able to wake up in the morning and know that you'll never have a bad day again. Trust me. If this sounds a little bit out there for you, promise me one thing, you'll listen to the episode all the way to the end and I guarantee it will not only change your day around, but your entire life. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the interview. I'll be back at the end to tell you a bit more about where you can find out about Michael and also order his books too. Enjoy. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. I know that it's probably of the essence for you, so I appreciate it a lot.
Pleasure.
Before we get started, I thought it would be a good idea just to have a bit of an introduction. So Can you tell the listeners who you are and what do you do?
It's that question that nobody really wants to be asked because I do several things. So I'm probably most well known as a keynote speaker. Mm-hmm. So I speak at lots of events around the world. Also as an author, I've written 6 books. Mm-hmm. And as a coach, and I coach all sorts of different people from, athletes, presenters, sometimes very well-known people, often business people, people who want to be a bit better at what they do. But when somebody asks me, and it's like the elevator pitch, and they say, what do you do? I always say, I teach people how to be brilliant.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that. What exactly does that mean?
Well, I think it's about finding out where you are now, mm-hmm. finding out where you want to get to, and then what I do is I help people to fill the gap. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's a confidence thing. Sometimes people need certain tools. Sometimes people need to eliminate something from their lives and replace it with something else, which is something you'll know a lot about. Mm-hmm. And other times it's that people already know what they need to do. And especially with coaching, they just need someone to be accountable to.
Yeah, that's something I really want to delve a bit deeper into in our conversation today. As you know, I work in I hate using the term weight loss industry, but I guess when it comes down to it, that is the industry that I work in. Although many people come to me because they want to lose weight, but actually that's really just the very, very bottom of the pile of things that actually need to change for them. But we can get into that in a bit. But what really interested me, and I read your book, How to Be Brilliant, it was 2014, so it was quite a wee while ago. And then I read Flip It after that.
Okay.
And when I read How to Be Brilliant, it was just it wasn't easy, but it was so straightforward and step by step and very, to me, that just like tickles my brain in the in the right place. It's
I love that, tickles my brain.
In the correct place.
Would you do that? Would you do that as a review on Amazon for me?
I can do, yeah.
Tickled my brain.
But what really intrigued me was how did you go about getting the idea for it? Like, how did you personally develop the skills that you needed to write a book like that? Because it is such a powerful book in such a simple step-by-step way.
So I used to be a youth worker, and when I was a youth worker, I met some extraordinary people. And it was often people who had so much faith in other humans, particularly young people. And I used to watch what they did and was just blown away by it. Seeing people working in places like Pennywell in Sunderland, which is one of those areas where even the cats had skinheads. I mean, it was really, really tough. Mm-hmm. And seeing how you could take anybody and make them that little bit better. And people would use this term about being brilliant, and I liked that. I enjoyed that, but I had no idea how you would do it. And then I became a fundraiser. And when I was fundraising, I met some extraordinary people, especially when I was doing what's called big gift fundraising. So this was average size donation was around about £20,000. That was an average.
Wow.
So I was meeting people who were writing a check for £250,000 for the charity I was working for. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot of work to get to that point where they would write the check, but I got to know them very well. And I always used to ask them lots of questions. So I'd meet somebody who was very, very successful. And one day I was with a guy who he invented the Caterpillar, the big split axle trucks that you see in quarries. Mm-hmm. And I was with this extraordinary guy, and I asked him lots of questions. And after about 2 hours, he said, "Michael, you've been asking me lots of questions. Let me ask you some questions." So I said, yeah, go on. What would you like to know? And the first question was, what are you doing right now for your own personal development? Mm-hmm. And I was like, what are you doing right now for your own personal development? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And I said, give me a bit more, because I didn't understand the question. So I tried to explore a little bit further. And he said, well, what was the last book that you read? And I think it was probably something like a bad Jeffrey Archer book on holiday. So I lied. So I can't remember. And he said, look, what was the last book that you read that made you better? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't really know. He said, well, let me give you two suggestions. One was a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the other book was called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Mm-hmm. So I read those two books, and that was the moment where my life changed, because I realised that people had wisdom and knowledge that you could get out of a book for £9.99. Mm-hmm. You could apply that, and it would make a difference as long as you did what it said on the tin, as long as you did what you read about. Mm-hmm. So I got really into personal development, and then I got a chance to teach what I knew to kids. Mm-hmm. So I moved to Glasgow to do that. So I had a great time. I spent 2 years in Glasgow, became one of my absolute favourite places on earth, and started to teach kids personal development techniques, working for a company up there. And then I got a chance to teach teachers. Mm-hmm. And the thing with teaching teachers, Rachel, is once you've taught teachers, you can teach anybody, because teachers already know everything. Obviously, that's a joke. Any teachers that are listening, take this as a joke.
I actually have a lot of teacher clients, so that's brilliant.
But actually what they did, what was brilliant, teachers made me look beyond the ideas. So I was teaching ideas. They wanted to know, well, what's the research that backs this up? How do you know this works? Who says? And I met a guy called Professor John Macbeth, who at that time was head of quality in education at the University of Strathclyde. He went on to be chair of educational leadership in Cambridge. I mean, he's got a brain the size of a planet. And John became my mentor, and he started to teach me the research that happened. So I knew these techniques that I'd read in books that I've been teaching to kids and stuff. I knew that worked. I had the research to back it up. All I needed now was something that made it mine. So when I started my own company, I was just had an opportunity to teach these tools and techniques, and I found myself in front of a group of, it was charities actually, and I said, look, do you want to be good or do you want to be brilliant? Because good isn't good enough anymore. And I just saw all of these eyes go wide open, and I thought, oh, there's something there about good isn't good enough anymore. And I thought I was going to write a book called Good Isn't Good Enough. Mm-hmm. And I thought, actually, that's a little bit negative. Actually, what I want people to do is to be brilliant. So I started to teach a program called How to Be Brilliant. It used to be a 2-day program. We'd start at 9 in the morning. We'd finish at midnight on the first day. Second day, we'd start at 9, finish at 6. Now, there was 90 days worth of homework for people to do afterwards. It was a huge thing. And I taught that so many times that I knew the format in my brain. And then I told a lie to a publisher. And now this is just between you and I, Rachel. We can't tell anybody else. But I had a meeting with a brilliant publisher, a lady called Rachael, who at that time, when you go to W.H. Smith's and you see the top 10 business books.
Yeah.
But the day I met with Rachael, 7 of the top 10 were her books.
Wow.
I mean, that gives you an idea how brilliant she was. And she was working for Pearson at the time, the biggest publishers in the world. And I told her about this idea about How to Be Brilliant as a book, and she was like, it's great, it's wonderful, I love it, we'll publish it, let's do it. And I said, great, when will it be published? And she said, it's probably going to be about 18 months. I was like, no. And this was Easter, so it was just before Easter, it was the Thursday before Easter. And I said, no, it has to be published by the end of this year. I've set a goal, and I'm really into my goals, and the date is the deadline, it has to be done by the end of this year. And she went, well, the only way we could do that is if you had the manuscript ready, because we've had actually an author who's dropped out, he's missed his target, so we could maybe get that slot. But you'd have to have the manuscript ready now. And I said, it's written. Right. You didn't tell me. And I went, yeah, of course it's written. and she said, well, can I have it by Tuesday after the Easter weekend? And I got in the car and I rang my brilliant wife, Christine, who writes with me and works with me, does everything with me. And I said, Christine, cancel everything this weekend. We're writing a book. And we did. And we wrote How to Be Brilliant in 4 days.
Oh, my goodness. That is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was quite something. Now, the other side is, of course, the 10th anniversary edition of How to Be Brilliant came out a couple of years ago. And I got in touch with Rachel. I said, would you mind if I told this story? And I went through the story and she said, no, not at all, it's fine. I said, I'm really sorry about that. She said, Michael, I knew you hadn't written the book. I said, really? She went, yeah, but I knew you would.
Oh, wow.
Because you had it in your eyes. And when somebody looks at me in the eyes and says, this will happen, effectively you said it happens, but you said this will happen. I just knew you were going to do it, and I knew it was going to be a bestseller. And it's now in 27 languages and 80 countries around the world.
That is unbelievable. I'm actually holding my copy here that I've had for a long time, but I don't think it's the 10th anniversary one, unfortunately. I didn't realise there had been an updated version.
Well, there's 4 versions now. So there's the original one, the very first ones that were printed. Inside, when they do the list of the contents, they spell my name wrong.
Oh, really?
It's Heppell, E-double-L, and the publisher did the contents. It was the only page I hadn't proofread because they put it in last. And they read Michael Heppell, company values, and they had Heppell with 1 L.
Oh,
and there was only 2,000 of those ever printed, so they're the very rare ones. Yeah. So you get the first edition Harry Potter.
Oh. I have the 2011 third edition.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also lent my copy of Flip It to someone and never got it back. So
happens a lot.
Happens a lot. I know. I just need to get another one.
Flip It is the book that gets given to more people. We have coaches, counsellors, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, business leaders, business owners, friends. Everybody gives out Flip It as a way to want to help people, and that for me is the biggest on it. You know, people kind of say, oh, don't lend books, make them buy their own. Sod that. Give the book to somebody.
Yeah.
My goal isn't to make 50 pence on a book. My goal is to positively influence everybody I connect with. So dish out the books, give them out, go for it, loan them, do
Definitely. It. Let's actually talk about Flip It just now. I was going to talk about that a bit later on, but it's something like that I recommend in the course that I've written. So all of my members that go through the course get recommended that book because I think when people have been on a diet for a long time, I mean, some members that come to me have been yo-yo dieting for the vast majority of their lives, and sometimes it can be like 40, 50, 60 years. And they come to me in a really, really negative, in a really, really down negative way. And one of the first things that I am faced with is to help them to, first of all, see what they can do rather than what they can't do. Because I think when they've been in this sort of diet culture for such a long time, they're being bombarded constantly with, here's what you can't have, here's what you can't eat, here's what you can't do. Yeah. And it gets to the point where they want to make a change, but they're so focused on all of the things that they can't do that they find it really difficult to see what they can do. So could you tell me a little bit about, for those that are listening that obviously are not members, that haven't read the book yet, could you tell me a little bit about your book, Flip It?
Yeah. Well, Flip It was a phrase I used to use, I still do use a lot when I'm coaching people. And what we found out was that sometimes people's most negative situations, most negative thoughts and beliefs and circumstance were actually the gateway to the real success. Mm-hmm. And what we do in Flip It is, it's a technique called reframing, where you take something that appears to be really negative and you reframe it and actually use the tools and the techniques that are in there to help you to get to where you really want to be. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because when I wrote that book, I had a bit of self-doubt myself. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, you know what, I really like it. I like this concept, but will it transfer the same way that I use it in coaching into a book? And then an interesting thing happened. Chris Evans, who formerly of Radio 2 until a few weeks ago, now on Virgin, he read it and asked me to go on to the Chris Evans Drive Time shows it was then. Mm-hmm. And he described it as the best personal development book he'd ever read. And then said, and by the way, I've read them all. and it was like one of those moments in your life where you go, my goodness, somebody really, really gets this. And it was doing all right until that point. It hadn't been a number one bestseller or anything. He said that, and Sally Traffic, on Radio 2, who does the traffic news, mm-hmm. she was a little bit skeptical, and she said, go on then, tell me something from this book. So I was going on to be interviewed 20 minutes later, and he started quoting things from the book. He started to quote ideas, and she was going, oh my goodness, that's it. And he goes, it's simple, it's easy, everyone can do this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. And then 2 weeks later, it was the Sunday Times number one bestseller. Mm-hmm. So, and all that doubt. But isn't it strange how you rely on somebody else to tell you that something's good? Mm-hmm. And I'm the person who teaches this, and I was self-doubting. Yeah. Really seriously self-doubting.
Yeah.
We all do it all the time.
Yeah, that's it. It's so much easier to sort of, like you say, it's much easier to tell other people what to do rather than do as I say, not as I do sometimes, isn't it?
I've got the t-shirt for that one, right?
So have I. Many of them. So my audience has weight loss and health goals, primarily come to me for weight loss. So what do you think you need to do, or what attributes do you need to develop in order to be brilliant at achieving health or weight loss goals? Okay,
so Rachel, this is where you are a million times more qualified than me to talk about this. So I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it. Mm-hmm. I'm a person who right now, as you're talking to me, I'm 1.5 stones overweight. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if we had this conversation 2 years ago, I was 3 stones overweight. So I could go, yeah, fantastic. I've lost 1.5 stones from where I was. And I feel a lot better with it. But I haven't cracked this yet. Mm-hmm. Right? I haven't cracked it. However, in terms of health, I am vibrantly healthy. I've got more energy than anyone you could ever meet. So I know how to do that bit. It's the bit about, where I need to move my belt a couple of notches and that type of stuff. That's where I have a little fight with myself. However, one of the books that we wrote was a book called Brilliant Life. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole chapter in there around health. And the 3 things which I really do believe just need to come together, it's all 3, which is eat well, move well, think well. Mm-hmm. And if you just do one of those things, you'll get a little bit of success. Mm-hmm. Do 2 of them, you're going to get a little bit more success. Do all 3, and that's when things really start to connect. So you can be eating the right stuff, but staying sedentary and having negative thoughts, and it's going to be very challenging for you to get to a target that you're happy with. Mm-hmm. You might look better, but you won't be happy with it. Then there's other people who try and out-exercise a poor diet. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of those people with the work that you do.
Yeah.
It is a classic thing, isn't it? That people who, they eat crap all the time and then they go to the gym and they're desperately trying to get this out of their system.
Yeah.
And there's other people who will think happy thoughts and they will tell themselves all sorts of stories, but actually the thinking well is just one bit of it. The eating well, the taking and moving well needs to be done as well. So I think so getting all three together. So we talked a lot about that. Now here's what people I find do. They set a target, they get off to a great start, something goes wrong, and immediately the whole day is written off. Sometimes the whole week is written off. Now I have this belief that there is a way how you can never have a bad day ever again. I think I write about this in Flip It quite a lot. And it's about, I agree that you can have bad situations, but you don't have to have a bad day. You can have a bad half an hour, and then what you can do is you can flip it and change that moment in time and change the rest of the day. So for example, if you change three things, which is language, focus, and physiology, you change your state. Now, we all have a particular state that we're in. So right now, I'm enjoying talking to you. My state is really, really good. It's fantastic. We're chatting. I'm talking about stuff that I love. I'm enjoying talking to you. I'm in a really, really great state. This morning, I got an email through from my accountant, which told me the tax bill that I have to pay in 2 days' time.
Me too.
Yeah. And now, typically, of course, I put off doing my tax return until the last possible minute because I know I'm not going to enjoy the results. So that email came through, and it was like, whoa. Now, I have a choice at that point. My language can be certain words, and we all know those words that you can use, oh, for sake, and all that type of stuff. That my focus at that point can be, oh my goodness, all this money to pay, blah, 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 what a nightmare. And my physiology, shoulders down, forehead all furrowed, short breathing, that type of thing. Now, some people will stay in that state for a whole day. Their partner comes in, how's your day? I've had a hell of a day. Got email from the accountant this morning. You see this tax bill we've got to pay? Their whole day taken by that. What I do is I choose to then flip it and say, okay, what are the opposite things? What's my language? My language can be thank you. You know what? It's not brilliant, but thank you that I've got an accountant who works it out for me. I don't have to do it myself. Thank you that I have, it's accurate. And let's start and make a little list of the things that I get for this tax that I'm paying. Next thing, my focus. My focus has to be about the future. I can't change the past. I can't go back and say, you know what, I wish I'd made a lot less money. That's a ridiculous thing to think. I'm paying the tax. Isn't it great that I made that money? Isn't it wonderful that people want to pay for my services, that want to pay me to go and stand on stage in front of their colleagues and their audiences and present what I do? Isn't that wonderful? So I'm grateful. And then my physiology, when I sit down, it's easier to be negative than when I stand up. So I stood up and I just went, yes, yes, yes. Clapped my hands a couple of times, gave myself a shake out, looked in the mirror and said, come on, Michael, crack on. And then sat down and prepared for the rest of my day. It's gone.
Yeah.
Now, that one of those techniques like that, Rachael, is super easy for me to explain. It's super easy for your listeners to understand it at an intellectual level. The challenge is doing it. The secret isn't in the knowing, the secret's in the doing. So I would advise that people learn the habit of doing a state change when you don't need it, so it's there when you do. Yeah, so practice changing states. So if you're aiming to lose weight and you have that thing where you eat something that you wish you hadn't and you beat yourself up for it, and then you go into a cycle and you go into that negative cycle and think, what the hell, I'm just going to have a massive cheesecake because I've messed up at lunchtime. Stop. You need to be practicing before you get to that situation of what you will do when you screw up, and you will. I don't know a single person who's aimed to achieve health goals who hasn't screwed up at some point, who hasn't stopped doing the exercise, who hasn't stopped doing the stretching, who hasn't stopped eating the right stuff, who hasn't gone out and got absolutely bladdered when they didn't mean to, or whatever. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
It's how do you change that state? Practice it when you don't need to, so it's there when you do.
Oh, that is such an incredible piece of advice, because I think that is probably up there in the top 3 reasons why people give up is because of the, I've messed it up now, I might as well just not even bother trying. And I used to be one of these people, honestly, until I read Flip It and practiced it, and it was so difficult in the beginning because I will hold my hands up and say, this time about 10 years ago, I was such a negative Nancy or negative Nelly or whatever you could say. Honestly, when I look back, I think, how did I get through life like that? But now I genuinely, I do it without even thinking now, and I think it pisses some people off. But I can't always achieve it. There are days, I'm not the perfect example, but it just seems to come naturally now. So for those of you that are listening that are thinking, oh, that sounds like it will never work for me, I can tell you, like, from the most negative person in the world, like, maybe not the most negative person in the world, but I was certainly one of those people that would sit in traffic and scream at the car in front of them like it was their fault, rather than just understanding that I'm going to be stuck there anyway. So
But Rachel, it's interesting though. I bet you can't put your finger on an exact day when that happened.
No,
it'll have just been because you did stuff over time.
Yeah.
And because you just kept doing it and just kept doing it and just kept doing it, eventually it got to that point you were like, you know what, I can do this. This is just me. It's just now it's my identity that I am this positive person who wants to make a difference and wants to help people.
Yeah.
And sometimes people look for this real epiphany. They want that moment. And if they don't get that big moment, then they start beating themselves up. Crazy.
No, definitely. I mean, it's the same with weight loss and changing your health. It's not something that is just going to suddenly, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly everything's going to be like unicorns and rainbows everywhere. Yeah. It's one of these things where you wake up in a year's time and you look back at all the little things that you've practiced over the course of a year that have all come together and added up, and suddenly you're a lot further along the line than you thought you did, even though it's been that small gradual process.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about goal setting in the Ditch the Diet Academy, and I know that you speak quite strategically about goal setting in your books, especially How to Be Brilliant. I just recently reread that section. What do you think, or what tips would you give to people, regardless of what their goals are, on how to set goals that will actually give real results?
Well, I used to be a big fan of you have to have written goals. And then I wrote another book called The Edge, with the subtitle How the Best Get Better. And we interviewed 200 very, very successful people from all different areas of life. One day we were talking to the head of the British Army, the next day we were talking to the top restaurateur in New York, and we had this list of questions that we went through. And one of the questions was, do you have written goals? And I honestly expected like 98% of them to go, yes, I have written goals. And hardly any of them did. It was like, wait a minute, this is the classic piece of personal development research. You must have written goals. But what they all had was absolute belief and certainty that they were in control of the future. And that was quite different. So the ones who believe that things happen to them, it's very difficult to have strong goals. When you believe that you control what happens and your reaction to it, that's when it's much easier to have goals. So I think great goal setting starts off with a great mindset. And the mindset is, I can be in control of this. I can do something about this. I'm better than that. Wherever you were before, I'll tell you, you're the first person I'm going to tell this to, right? When does this podcast go out?
It's probably going to go out this week, actually, Thursday or Friday.
Oh, all right, okay. So I'm going to put myself on the line here.
Okay.
I made a decision last week to write a new book.
Wow. Okay.
And I've been looking at writing a new book for about 3 years now, and I've been all over the place with it, and I had various ideas and various things, and they weren't really getting me. And then last week I came up with this idea, and I've been writing all weekend, and I am so fired up. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm writing it, and when I was looking at it, I was thinking, in terms of setting goals, where do we start? And the title of the book is You're Better Than That. And the strapline is 100 reasons why you are so much more than you think.
I love the sound of that.
Yeah. Now that's where great goal setting has to start with a belief that you're better than that. You're better than what you think you are right now. A genuine belief in it. Then you need to find the reasons why, and that's what drives the goal. And that's what I want to do in this next book. So, you're the first person I've told outside of my family and my personal assistants about the next book.
And are you going to write that in 4 days as well?
Plan to write it in 2 weeks because I've got 2 weeks at home, and I've got it all planned out. That's what I did over the weekend, and it's there. So that's why I know there's 100 reasons, because I've written all 100 reasons. Wow. I just have to write the copy to go in between.
Yeah.
100 titles at the moment.
That's so exciting. I look forward to that one.
Yeah. So with goal setting, my belief now, start off with you're better than that, believe that you're better, then think of the reasons why you're better, and then find the techniques to fill the gaps. And one of the great ways of doing that is working with people like yourself. So when you're working with you, you're going to be their accountability coach. You're going to give them technique and ideas that aren't based on some woolly idea. It's based on what actually works. You're very honest. You've already, in the time that we've talked about 2 or 3 times when you used to be like something and you struggled with that type of stuff. That's the person I want to talk to. That's the person I want to help me to hit my health and my weight loss goals. Not somebody who was skinny as a beanpole and was top of the class in school and all that type of stuff, and has a big cheesy smile, is 6'4" and can throw a javelin 8 miles. Those people do it for me. I want someone who's had the fight and who's had the struggle, and I think that's what you're sharing. So get people like you, invest in people like you around you to help you to be better, and then get it. I think it's so difficult to say this without sounding like everybody else who ever sets goal, but get into your head that what we call the future history, so that what it looks like, what it feels like, and add emotion into that. At a practical level, we do things because we know we should do this and we know we should do that, but it's emotion that will drive us. Emotion creates the emotion that's going to drive you to get to where you need to get to.
Oh, completely. I talk a lot about comfort zones as part of the academy, and a lot of people come to me and I'm going to be honest with you, there are a lot of people who join the academy and realise that it's going to be too much work. They're just not ready to feel that level of discomfort. What are your thoughts on discomfort and progress? Do you think it's impossible to make progress while you're still feeling comfortable? And what exactly do you mean by getting out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, I think with How to Be Brilliant, we start in there by talking about the characteristics of highly successful people and what brilliant people do. And one of the characteristics of everybody who we ever interview who's highly successful, or ever studied who's highly successful, is this wonderful ability to get out of their comfort zone. The thing that stops people from getting out of their comfort zone is fear. And it's fear of the unknown. It's fear that I've screwed it before, I'll do it again. It's fear of what people might think. It's fear of getting it right and then having to do it again. One of the things with people with weight loss, which you'll know, is that people are frightened that if I do this, does that mean I will always have to do this for the rest of my life? Yes, that's it. Because otherwise you'll go back to being fat. And the reason why you're talking to me is you don't want to be fat. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it now, ironically. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say to you, no, all you got to do is just do this for 3 months, lose the weight, and then just go back to how you were before. So it's like, and that's why, you use that terminology, ditch the diet, because that's a diet. Yeah, great, you do a diet, but then people go back. So that it is uncomfortable to realize that this is a complete behavioral shift for the rest of your life. Let's deal with just that thing first. Well, what are the fears that people go with? Well, I've identified myself with having a good time, having fun, being enjoyable, being comfortable with my old behaviors. If I stop doing those behaviors, do I lose those things? I go out with my mates and I will have 10 drinks and have a great time, whatever. I love puddings. Are you telling me that when I go to my mum's for dinner, I'm going to tell her not to put that on my plate, and I'm not going to finish any of that on there. It'll break her heart. We start telling ourselves all these stories. When I'm on a diet, I can tell her that because I'm on a diet. When I'm not on a diet, I'll upset my mum. No, you won't upset your mum. That's a story you're telling yourself. It's false evidence appearing real. That's what fear really is. False evidence appearing real. You tell yourself a story, and then you'll start and find the evidence to justify that story. And that's what keeps you in your comfort zone. Now you step out of your comfort zone, you do it once or twice, and you stay out there, suddenly you start to get a new reality. You start to get a new identity. So rather than a person who is losing weight, you then start to create the identity of a person who has great health, a person who is slim, who looks the way that they want to, and you start to create that identity. The identity for that person, their comfort zone, is one of, I can say no to things without fear of upsetting somebody. I can make better choices. They start to play, they gamify it. Somebody once told me this brilliant thing, which was, it's a sign of class to turn down delicious food. And I was like, wow, I love that. That's so interesting. It's a sign of class to turn down delicious food. And it's true. If you're somewhere and somebody has these amazing cakes or whatever, and everyone's going, oh, they're fantastic, they're great. I'm okay, thanks very much. That's a sign of class, rather than I'm on a diet, so I have to do that. See, it's kind of create that new identity, that person who does get out of their comfort zone, who stays outside their comfort zone, overcoming the fears, which are usually false evidence appearing real, and that's how you start to create a new comfort zone. But this one's bigger. With a bigger comfort zone, you can do a lot more.
I love it. False evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
Incredible. Just before we wrap up, I wanted to come back to something that you mentioned earlier, and in the description on Amazon of your book Flip It, it says you'll discover how to make sure you never have a bad day ever again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask, maybe this is a bit of an impossible question. Can we leave the listeners with 2 or 3 things that they could put into action almost straight away that would turn their day around today?
Yes, I can. So the first one, I teach people this all the time. Every single keynote I do, I use this because I think it's so important. I would consider, what's your stimulus response to certain situations? So how do you respond to certain things? And here's the classic one. When somebody asks you the question, how are you? So when somebody says, how are you? Your stimulus response dictates already what the rest of your day is going to be like. So 70% of people are fine. How are you? Fine. They don't even think about it. They don't even consider how they're genuinely doing, what's happening in their day. They just say they're fine. There's another 15% of people who say they're not bad, particularly in Scotland. You'll hear that a lot. You're right, no bad. No bad. And here's the thing. When you say you're not bad, that's a double negative, so it's even worse. So here's one thing you can do straight away. When somebody asks, how are you? Tell them you're brilliant. Do that for 30 days. No matter what the situation, no matter how you feel, just say brilliant and do it for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, I absolutely guarantee that the people around you will feel better and you will feel better just because you changed one word. So there's one thing you can do straight away. Second thing that everybody can do is to learn how to breathe properly. I took up yoga about 7 or 8 years ago, and it changed my life. Now, I took it up I want to be more flexible, and I want to be able to stretch and do that type of stuff. What I actually learned was that I don't breathe properly. And I was breathing from the top of my chest. So it's that kind of always that, if I was exaggerating it, that's what I would do. What my brilliant yoga teacher, Julie Thirlwell, taught me was that I need to breathe right in from my stomach. It feels like the air's going into your stomach. Obviously it isn't, it's just going deep into your lungs. But to have these, what I call Buddha breaths. So you breathe in, your tummy sticks out, and that's fine. And if you can make your out breath longer than your in breath, that one thing will immediately change how you feel about where you are, your circumstance. Any negativity starts to wash away. It's quite extraordinary. If you want to quit smoking, 5 Buddha breaths. Next time you want a cigarette, do 5 Buddha breaths instead. I I guarantee you won't want to have a cigarette. If you're tempted by something that you don't want to, that you shouldn't perhaps eat, or you should make a choice not to eat, rather than eating it, stop 5 of those breaths. So it's like you breathe in for 5 seconds, you're going to breathe out for 6. Little pause in between. If you breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 5 or 6. Just make sure the out breath lasts a little bit longer. Deep, deep breaths. It's extraordinary. And then the final thing is, people have chosen to listen to this podcast. Now, you've invested your time in listening to Rachael and I having a chat. That's the easy part. Understanding something at an intellectual level is easy. I mentioned earlier on the challenge is doing something, and it almost doesn't matter what you do, so long as you do something every single day. One thing every single day, and do this thing which I think you might have other people talk about on your podcast, which is called habit stacking. So take a habit that you already have and then attach a new habit to it. So if you, is a classic thing that somebody says, I tell you what, I'm going to do exercise 3 or 4 times a week. And then what they do is they don't do it. And the reason why they don't do it is because their kit, their PE kit, as we would call it, their workout kit, is stashed away at the bottom of a wardrobe, or it's up on a shelf or whatever. The shoes are at the back of the cupboard, that type of thing. If you want to take exercise, where's the best place to have your training shoes? And everybody says, at the front door. Yeah, they're right in front of you. Actually, the best place to have them is on your feet. But not on your feet, at the front door. And if you get into the habit that when you come home from work, you know you're going to walk through the door, you know you're going to do something. When you come through the door, you take off your shoes and you put on your trainers. You just do that one habit change and you are much more likely to follow through and do the exercise than if you just took your shoes off. And if, like me, you have a no-shoe household, and you say, what am I going to do? That's fine. Take your shoes, your gym shoes or your training shoes, and put them right in the middle of your hallway, right there. So they are not just up against the wall, they are right in front of you. If it's a particular thing with food, make sure that you habit stack the food thing. So that if you want to not eat something, you make sure it's out of way, it's out of sight, you can't see it. The things that you do want to eat, make sure that they are there in front of you. So when you're already looking at your fridge, you know when you open your fridge door, that's a habit that you do that without thinking about it. The thing that you first see is the thing that you most likely want to eat. So it's habit stacking, it's linking things together, and that makes such a big difference.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Michael. Those 3 tips have no doubt will change people's lives in one day.
Pleasure.
Guarantee.
Stuff.
So where can we find out more about you? I'm guessing that we can get your books from Amazon, but
Yes.
Is there anywhere else that we can find out more about what you do?
Well, I mean, of course, the books are available on Amazon. Great, that's fantastic. I really appreciate the fact you mentioned the books. But also, we have a free program called 90 Days of Brilliance. If you go onto michaelheppell.com, Heppell, Heppell, or just Google Michael Heppell, michaelheppell.com should come up first. And on there it says, would you like to be coached free by Michael for the next 90 days? Click on there. It'll say, how did you hear about us? Please write in there that you've listened to Rachael's podcast or just, Ditch the Diet podcast, just something so we know where it came from. And we'll arrange that you get a whole bunch of free stuff, that you're going to get our regular newsletters, plus for the next 90 days, you will get some additional information. So you'll get something about your personal development, about your health, your well-being, all sorts of stuff that we're going to send through. We never pass your details on to anybody else, so if you don't worry about that. It's one of those wonderful double opt-in things that we have to do these days because of GDPR. So you'll register, then you'll get an email saying, is this really you? Look out for that email and make sure you click on that email. Sometimes it drops in people's junk folders or their trash or whatever. Make sure you click on there and it'll all happen automatically. michaelheppell.com.
Thank you so much. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Michael again for his time. I'm sure you've enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. And if you did, please share this episode with someone else that you think may enjoy it. We have loads of ways to share. Check out the Ditch the Diet Academy social media on all channels, especially Facebook and Instagram. Just to let you know, if you are listening to this episode on the day that it goes out, which should be the 31st of January 2019. For the next 4 days, we have 50% off your first month as a member of the Ditch the Diet Academy. That's 50% off your first month. So by this time next month, you could be well on your way to learning how to quit yo-yo dieting forever and actually get the life that you want. If you want to do that, please visit ditchthedietacademy.com/DTD-academy. Or just scroll down on the screen that you're listening on right now and click on the link. Just there, it would be lovely to see you. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with Michael, I'll drop some links in the show notes. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Ditch the Diet podcast, and you can get in touch with me by email if you would like to do that. My email address is rach, RACH, @ditchthedietacademy.com. I look forward to welcoming you again next week.